is a pleasure to welcome back to the program
Quinn Slobodian.
Professor of International History at Boston University.
I mean, I guess one thing I would just add, and maybe you can use it or not, but so if you think that in some basic way humans are hardwired and cannot be improved or changed very much, then a lot of the programs of the Great Society and educational uplift and civil rights in general, affirmative action, all become worse than fruitless and worse than impotent efforts at creating a different world. They are actually just schemes by bureaucrats to make jobs for themselves and for less capable groups and minority groups to try to seize assets and wealth from the more capable and more high-functioning sectors of the population.
There you have, in 2 sentences, the next 15 or so minutes of your life. If you want to leave now, you already basically know how guys like Trump and Elon, but also their media lackeys like Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan, Steve Bannon, how all these guys took over in the last decade. This is how they protected neoliberalism. By calling progressivism a conspiracy and using race science, they pretended to be populist enemies of the elite. But once in power, they dismantled the last thing standing in the way of neoliberalism that Reagan and Clinton couldn't get rid of. They are not against the system. They're its greatest assets. Okay, bye. Fine, if you want to stay, we can actually do this right. Because how we got here is insane. These guys won by bringing eugenics and neoliberalism back from the brink of death. Those are not popular things, but here's how they did it. Howdy friends, JT from the future here. I just wanted to take a quick second to do a shameless plug for Means TV, both because it's awesome and because being a dirty communist on YouTube is looking like more and more of a losing proposition. If you're not familiar with Means, it's a worker-owned cooperative and explicitly anti-capitalist streaming service. You can find everything from my videos to original series like Means Morning News to feature-length documentaries like Abby Martin's Gaza Fights for Freedom, with more amazing content being added every day. I've been working behind the scenes to help turn Means into a place that's both worthwhile for viewers as well as offering financial security for socialist creators in an increasingly reactionary political landscape. Every creator on the platform has a unique link that when anyone signs up using that link, that creator directly benefits from the subscription. I have mine in the description below, but if you really appreciate another creator's work, make sure to use their link instead. All of us at Means are trying really hard to build an alternative media ecosystem that is ideologically dedicated to sharing left-wing perspectives. With Means TV, we're able to say things the way they are. No pulling punches, no beating around the bush to trick the all-seeing eye of the algorithm. Means gives us the freedom to make the content we really want to make and say the things we really want to say. There's even a community forum where creators can engage with each other and fans right on the platform. As a little thank you for watching our channel, if you sign up with our link, or another creator's if you prefer, you can get your first month 20% off. Or for an even better deal, you can opt for the annual plan and get the whole year 20% off. A full year of Means TV will run you less than $90, which is like the cost of a single DoorDash meal these days. Every person who signs up using a creator's link is directly contributing to the financial stability of that channel and the entire cooperative media project. None of this would be possible without the generosity of viewers like you. Means TV is entirely grassroots funded, and it always will be. So if you'd like to help support our work, consider signing up for Means TV using the link below. It really does help the team here at Second Thought and dozens of principled socialist creators across the platform. Thanks for your support. All right, back to the video.
Aujourd'hui, je vous demande d'accueillir Monsieur Steve Bannon.
Let them call you racist.
Laissez-vous appeler raciste.
Let them call you xenophobes.
Mais laissez-les vous appeler xénophobes.
Let them call you nativist.
Laissez-vous les appeler nativistes.
Wear it as a badge of honor.
This is the bell curve. You've heard of it before. It's Charles Murray and Richard Herrnstein's book on IQ that, among other things, became popular in the 90s for saying that different races have different average intelligence. It's a book that gives its readers a scientific, big air quotes there, roadmap for building a racial hierarchy. Which is, and let me be clear that I'm not exaggerating in any way, shape, or form, literal Nazi shit. It is literal Nazi behavior to try and science out that one race's blood is superior to another's.
You know, when they let, I think the real number is 15, 16 million people into our country, when they do that, we got a lot of work to do. They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done.
But we'll get to all that in a minute. If you've ever heard guys like Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Steve Bannon, whoever, talk about IQ or how some cultures are more violent or less intelligent, or sometimes more intelligent than white people, the modern origin of those arguments is almost certainly the bell curve.
The bell curve.
The bell curve.
Bell curve. It has been some time since it's been a more controversial book.
They argue that about 60% of intelligence is inherited.
As I understand the argument of it, I disagree.
The author's premise reinforces the racialist eugenics theory of African inferiority.
When the bell curve came out, it was in every bookstore, in every magazine, and it made it admissible, maybe even unavoidable, for reasonable people to have open political discussions about eugenics. To just ask questions about the idea that society should suppress inferior people's reproduction and promote superior people's reproduction. The first step of all that being figuring out just who is superior. And to do that, the book used IQ tests to claim that some racial groups are more intelligent than others on average, and it presented this data as an indisputable scientific fact. While the authors hedged their language a bit, and they say they don't know exactly if it's mostly nature or nurture that's responsible for IQ differences, their conclusions betray that they think there is such a thing as fundamental racial inequality in intelligence that you can observe directly through tests. This difference is something that they think you can, at best, only mask temporarily, but never actually resolve. At the top of the pecking order, the book puts East Asians and Ashkenazi Jews just above whites, and then other Asian, Hispanic, and Black people are on the bottom. And already you can imagine how this book might be useful for a whole bunch of far-right debate bros.
They say, if we're racist, why is it that we're placing other people above whites? We're not white supremacists. So that's a kind of cheeky way for them to try to turn the tables on their critics. But I think it also spits out in two other more meaningful ways. One is it then allows for that IQ science to support what's called ethno-differentialism. So the new right in general often has this principle of a space for every race, quote unquote. So an idea that it's actually fine for there to be Hungary for the Hungarians, Africa for the Africans, Japan for the Japanese, and that's actually the ideal world for a reactionary internationalist position. So the fact that East Asians had higher IQ is not a threat if you believe that East Asians will remain in East Asia and not be, active competitors inside of the majority white future you imagine.
But that's skipping a few years to the present. Before we get there, I want to be clear that The Bell Curve is a bad book. And not just for its conclusion. There's a dozen leaps of logic and methodology problems behind it and the sort of race science it upholds. This video won't be a thorough debunking since we're focusing on the political consequences of this rhetoric, not the book specifically. But suffice to say that the idea that IQ or ethnic culture or however conservatives are branding this stuff now could give you a scientific explanation of or justification for racial inferiority is bullshit. I've left a few links in the description for those of you who want to see the thorough debunking for yourselves. But just to be clear, there is no such thing as a superior race. But back to our topic. These guys like Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, Lex Friedman, a bunch of people in the far-right media ecosystem have either platformed Murray or referenced his work indirectly. And it's had its consequences. Explicitly pro-eugenics people are staffing the government. But for Murray's work to ever get that popular, race scientists first had to form alliances with other people of influence, like neoliberals, whom we've talked about here before. And nothing makes that alliance clearer than this. Charles Murray, Friedrich A. Hayek Chair Emeritus at the American Enterprise Institute. How does a race scientist get the title of head asshole named after the most influential neoliberal thinker at a think tank for neoliberalism? Well, do you remember the 90s? The 90s was supposed to be a victory lap for neoliberalism. Global capitalism had won. The largest communist project in the world had just been dissolved, and the IMF, the World Bank, and the US were all beating the drum of free trade and infinite growth on every continent. If you were one of these guys, the world had just proved you right. You could kick your feet up, watch society crumble around fewer and fewer mega monopolies, waiting patiently for your no red tape chemical runoff utopia. Or so you'd think.
They must be feeling, flushed with optimism and victory. But in fact, if you read the articles they're publishing, the speeches they're giving in the 1990s, it's the opposite. They fear that they actually lost the Cold War.
After spending 40 years building a world for global free trade, building the institutions that would protect and force it open, getting neoliberals into power, advising presidents, these guys thought it wouldn't actually work. Quote, "Were we tomorrow to have the political forces to dismantle the welfare state, and should we set about dismantling it, we would face a frightening but unavoidable fact. Behind the welfare state, there is almost nothing. The fuzzy and attractive promise that the private sector and the free market will fill the gap instantly, like Athena sprung fully born from Zeus, thus replacing the welfare state and making the new order acceptable to our citizens, is an utter chimera." They won, and yet they knew they couldn't do anything. People liked the New Deal. Social Security and Medicaid were good things, and if they started taking them apart, everyone would immediately see how destructive the neoliberal project actually was. So, they deflected.
The current Office of Management of the Budget, Russ Vought, describes the US government as being overtaken by Marxist leftist radicals. They fear, and they say so directly, that the red menace has now gone green. The environmentalists have now picked up where the Marxists left off. Feminists, gay rights activists, anti-racists, these were all now the new enemy. And they had, this is the important part, taken over that stratum of organizations that sit above the nation. They think that the woke elite, as they would be called later, have taken over the global governance structure. And in the minds of the new right, these are the people who are the real enemy.
Conservatives thought that even though socialism was probably not popular anymore after years of the Cold War, things like 401ks, civil rights, and environmentalism still made the thought of a government that's actually useful politically viable. To make it unpopular then, they latched onto the two narratives of their time. One, the government is getting bigger, meaning wealthy bureaucrats and college-educated socialist sympathizers. And two, new science is showing how all these efforts at making society better and more equal is maybe headed in the completely wrong way because some people are just inferior and therefore deserve to stay that way. This meant that the war on the poor that neoliberals wanted to lead no longer needed to be justified on the grounds of efficiency or economic theory, because thanks to works like the bell curve, anything short of total corporate takeover was essentially an affront against nature. People are fundamentally unequal. Let the free market decide, or you're in the pocket of the woke elite. And to be clear, that's just not true. Spending money on programs that keep people out of poverty, giving them better access to food, to shelter, work, transportation, education, these things are not an affront against nature or subsidizing stupidity. Intelligence is relatively equal person to person, and the things that make your life harder, like not having access to those things, is a way better explanation of why your test results might be on the lower end. The best thing for society isn't leaving a bunch of people out to dry, it's giving everyone as high a living standard as possible. That's what civilization is supposed to be about. But that's just not the neoliberal or the race scientist project. Their project begins with finding ways to cut government spending in ways that help the 1% and ends with making sure that the first victims of that project are minorities. And when you strip everything away and leave only nature, and nature turns out to be the chaos of global markets, what can people hold on to? Turns out, not a lot.
So times are rough, they're volatile, what do? Well, in the financial markets, you buy US dollars or you buy gold. You appeal back to something that seems to have either a natural or a quasi-natural value to it.
Gold! I'm rich!
And I think whiteness, I think the territory of the United States, the territory of Germany or Austria in those cases have offered themselves as sort of rocks of stability in times of uncertainty. The attraction of Trump in the United States has been similar.
I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you.
You feel the pressures of everyday price rises and, the insecurity of jobs, then instead of saying, hey, let's build out the care economy and make it easier to organize the workplace so that you'll have less uncertainty now. Instead, it's saying we're going to create a new system where there's loyalists who are inside, who are going to get some of the spoils, and then there's other people who we're going to punish and extract those spoils from. They wanted to accelerate processes of neoliberal globalization.
The destruction of the welfare state wasn't going to actually help people suffering under neoliberalism, obviously. Affirmative action, civil rights, social spending were never the reason people's lives got worse in the first place. So to make up the gap, nationality, one heavily equated with the culture and ethnicity of the superior people, became the solution that worked for both neoliberals and the race scientists in their coalition.
We're now in the business of maximizing citizenship value.
You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus.
To imply that Americanness is in itself an asset that can be monetized and given a cash value, and that part of the attraction of the far right, or the right in general now, is that it offers a certain set of things as haven assets in moments of uncertainties.
So here we are, Trump won, on a program that not only pretends to be for the working class in spirit, while actively making working class life more unbearable, but is based on the irredeemable idea that some cultures and ethnicities and races are superior to others and can exclude anyone who isn't assimilated or controllable. To try to make this pretty terrible pill go down a bit smoother, they're now acting like citizenship is going to save you from the rest of the horror coming down the pike. But if the last few months of accidental deportations and denaturalizations have shown us anything, is that it's just another fig leaf. American belonging is little more than blind fealty to Trump and the fictional white American ideal. Whether that protects you or not from the price hikes, detentions, and welfare cuts isn't a question. It won't. If you liked this episode, please check out Quinn's book, Hayek's Bastards. Quinn was kind enough to give us early access to it and let us interview him. And if you've ever wondered why conservatives are so obsessed with buying gold, the last third of the book is all about that, and I can't recommend it enough. See you in 2 weeks.